Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Vibing with the Leaders. I'm Henry, this is Rosh. I'm Pat. Yeah. And this week we're going to be talking about who should you hang with at school. And we thought this could be an interesting question for you, for us to discuss and for you guys to hear about. Because, we've all been in high school and we hang out with so many different people. Maybe it'd be worth talking about who we hang out with and if there should be people we should hang out with or people we shouldn't hang out with, and how should we behave when we hang out with these people. And of course, like always, we're talking in the context of Christians and how Christians should be acting. Now, if you're a non-Christian, it's okay, don't feel like you need to tune out, because you can look at your Christian friends and maybe see if they show these signs of how they should be behaving or how they shouldn't be behaving, and if they're not behaving in a way that's following the Bible, you can call them out on it. Alright, you guys ready?
Yes. Yes.
Alright, let's do it. We're going to start with our first question, which will be a nice light one. Sort of running off the back of the last podcast. When you guys were in high school, were you in a group? What sort of group were you in, if you were in one? Or there's like the cool group, there's like the group of dudes that play Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a handball crew, there's the guys who play basketball. And there's guys who just like sit around and like to talk during lunch. What groups were you guys in?
Sounds like Rosh would be all of them.
All of them.
Would you?
You can share first.
Well, for me, I think my experience would be closer to like a non-Christian, because I wasn't a Christian back then. And so for me, I was like the floater, and so I would play basketball. I would be with the cool kids. I would be with the people who care about their work, so studious people, and then the gamers also, and then people who just talk, like, I don't know, just talk about whatever. So like I was floating around, and for me, I think that was like just trying to find my identity, maybe. That's what I think. That's why I was floating around.
Like you weren't committed to any group.
Yeah, like I was sussing out, but I think I was closest to the, like the gamers. Yeah.
What games did you play back in high school?
It was just Dota, League of Legends too.
Oh yeah.
But
not anymore.
Dota 1, Board Aussie, those were the days.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't worry, these guys won't understand.
Some of them might.
How about you, Rosh? What sort of group were you in?
So I think my grade, there was, it's ironic, but I think it was just like, I went to Holston, first of all, and so there's a lot of Asians at Holston, and so my grade specifically, I think kind of split up into, so Holston has like day students and boarding students. So all the boarding students, we call them boarders, they would stay together pretty much. And in my grade, kind of all the Asians ended up hanging out together. So there ended up being two big Asian groups, we used to call them. And the groups used to be made up of smaller groups, but the group would the two big Asian groups would kind of hang out together in general. And it was like opposite sides of the schoolyard. But it was made up of smaller groups. So I was in a smaller group that was in the Asian group. There was an Indian group, but I wasn't in that group. I was in the Asian group. But we were also the group that played basketball. We played rugby and stuff as well, and soccer. We pretty much, the guys from that group would generally play sports. But it's kind of like everyone in the different groups would like go together to play sports, even though they weren't in there were smaller circles within the big group pretty much. And it was true for guys and girls. And I think in high school specifically, my close group of friends was like me, this other guy from church called Robert, and then like 6 girls was our close group.
Wow.
And that's another guy joined us in year 9 or 10, and then that was our inner group inside the big group, I think.
So 2 guys and 6 girls was your group.
Yeah.
Was that on purpose or?
What do you mean? We're just friends with who we're friends with.
Okay.
Loser.
Let's move on. So, I guess a question that might be relevant to people in high school: who should I be friends with? So, are there people that I should hang out with, and are there people that I shouldn't hang out with? Are there people that have good influence on me that I should hang out with, and people that have a bad influence on me, should I avoid them? What do you think, Pat?
Well, I think it depends on what you want, as selfish as that may sound. Like for me, for example, because I did hang around with, the ballers, the cool people, and the people who would study a lot. Like it's because, yeah, half of it is trying to find my identity, but I think the other half is also like what benefits me. So for example, towards like in year 8, 9, I was like gamers, like I was hanging with the gamers, basketballers, the cool people, because usually, well, in Bosley, the cool people would be like the king of that grade or would be most connected. So if any trouble comes, they'd have your back. And so that was like partially the reason why I would hang with the cool people. I would hang with basketball people because I enjoy playing basketball, and same with gaming because I enjoyed gaming. I want to play with people. But towards HSC and year 11 and whatnot, like I was splitting up my time with the students, the people who would study, and yeah, because they could share notes and they could help me get through HSC. So it's pretty selfish. I think there was
just using people.
Yeah, you could say I use people.
So when you say that you hung out with people who are beneficial to you, do you mean like people that you enjoy, or you get some sort of positive?
Like I would learn something. Like I would benefit out of it. I would learn something.
You would get something from it.
Yeah, like to help me develop, or get me to places. Yeah.
Or to have enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, part of my fun, amusement. Yeah.
So that's what you did back in high school. But
Yeah.
Is that something that you would say the same for now?
Now it's just I would hang with. Well, I mean, part of it is convenience also. Like I'm just there. Like I'll hang out with you. But then it's also I would choose to hang with people who would help me grow.
Would help you grow.
Yeah.
What does growing
in
look like?
terms of?
Oh, it could be anything. Like, well, from my perspective, like, or probably generally like positive things. For example, learn how to talk, or learn how to communicate better, learn how to manage, learn more spiritual, Bible things.
So if we talk in the context of like a high school student who's listening in right now, what sort of people would that look like in high school?
The cool kids in the woods.
So it depends what grade they are. Depends what they want. If you want to excel and do well in your work, I guess hang out with the nerds, and yeah, just be friends with them and learn things, teach each other things. Yeah, but it's also interesting to check out the cool people if you can. Because it's just interesting learning how they talk, because everyone has positive benefits or positive things to teach each other. So, I mean, just open up, like listen to other people, hang with anyone you can, try to get the most out of it.
So someone that can help you grow in some way.
Yeah, I think at the end it's anyone. Hang with anyone, you'll learn something. But if it's just like, if they help you, learn something small, then I guess you could move on to another person. Spend time with another person. Yeah. I don't know.
Because I guess part of this question is you only have a limited amount of time that you can spend with people in school, and most of the time you'll be in classes, so you don't get to really choose. So it's like recess and lunch, and before school and after school. So it's like, where do you use that time? What do you think, Rosh?
Well, I think I would have differed from Pat greatly if he didn't come back to the hang with anyone at the end. Because I think, not that I disagree with what he said, I just think that for me it's more of a, I don't want to say like hang with someone who makes you feel good. I think you should hang with everyone. Like, generally we can learn something from everyone. I think you should just, like the nuances maybe, if someone is a bad influence, or you don't enjoy being around them, then I don't think you should hang out with them. Like if someone hurts you or you just don't enjoy being around them, then I think you shouldn't have to kind of hang around them. Or like if you feel like they like they bring you down or they make you do things you wouldn't want to normally do, that's kind of the situation where I'd kind of say maybe you should not hang out with that person. Or if it's they make you do bad stuff, or like when you're around them, you don't enjoy yourself in certain circumstances. Maybe I would just say, avoid that circumstance with that person in whatever. But I mean, apart from that, it's like, yeah, I think it's like who you're comfortable with. And I think from the Christian perspective, like first of all, we go back to it. The Bible doesn't tell us you should hang out with this person. It gives us some advice, like if you hang around idiots, they're going to give you dumb advice. And then, I mean, like if and that's the truth, right? Like if you just hang around people who do really dumb things or really silly, eventually some of that's going to wear off on you. Like everyone can say, I'm going to ignore all the bad advice my friends give me, but eventually it kind of wears, like it affects you. But I wouldn't be saying anything like, oh, you have to only hang with Christians, or like I think that's actually wrong, that you should only hang with Christians. Like, yeah, so.
Sometimes it can be tricky trying to like discern bad advice or bad people.
Exactly, yeah.
Bad things, because sometimes you just don't know any better.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you don't know if someone's a bad person because they seem like a good person.
Yeah.
I want to dive deeper into this bad influence thing. So say like we're talking about people who aren't bad to you specifically, but do things that might be bad in terms of values that you might believe in. So my parents always told me never hang around with people who do drugs, or who smoke, or who drink alcohol, who swear too much, or who are rude to you, that sort of thing. So what if, would you say if you had like a friend who was, who sort of was a bully to other people, but they were good to you? So you're friends with them and they don't bully you, but they bully other people. So it's like a bad influence in that sense, but it doesn't hurt you specifically. Or like they do drugs on the weekend when they go to parties, but they don't force you to do drugs. Like, should you hang around those sort of people, or avoid them like my mom told me to?
So, in my opinion, so like yes, like the value stuff. Asian parents usually tell you like don't hang around people who do drugs, who smoke or drink or whatnot. Those are like the values, and I think if you have like that Christian perspective of like values and morals, you would be wiser in who you hang around with. Does that make sense? Yeah, and so.
But would you hang out with them?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Or should you?
Yeah, that's true. Because like, for me, it'd be if I get stumbled. Like, I think you need some self-awareness in this case. If you are easily manipulated, or if you feel like you could fall into the trap of also doing the same thing, like rebelling against God by, I guess, like having sex, for example, or because all your friends do it and whatnot, and then they're like, oh, you're a virgin and you haven't done this, blah blah blah, and you get peer pressured, right? And it's just like, if it's going against God, because you know your identity, and you know like what's right, from the Christian perspective, should you still hang around them? Like, if you're getting pressured, you probably shouldn't. That's what I think. Yeah, what do you reckon, Rosh?
Yeah, I mean, so like one of my, it's a good question. One of my good friends, probably one of my closest friends from work, in general, and I hang out with him pretty often. I haven't been hanging out because of this COVID thing, but I generally hang out with him pretty often. He's really interesting because like he's into drugs, he's into sex, he's into alcohol, he does all that. Very opposite to me. Like he's a big gangstery looking, sleeved up kind of Asian dude, just big, steroids, everything, whatever. I'm pretty much, right? Like, and I'm this small Indian guy who's quiet and married and all that stuff. And you know what? Like at face value, you'd say that's a really bad match. But he's not a bad influence on me because he never pushes me to do anything. For example, I've been there when he's done drugs, but he's never said, hey, you have to do this. He doesn't pressure me. He says, do you want it? And I say no, and he says, okay, right? And then in other things like he's talked about like how he wants to go to a strip club or something like that, which is what some people do. And then he said things like, if you ever cheat on your wife, I'll punch you in the face, right? And I'm like, okay, okay. He's like, because he's like, it's a really good thing that you've got going on, and I'm really happy for you. And it's like, like, that's great, right? I mean, not that my motivation to not cheat on my wife is this big Asian dude who's my friend, but as in, he's someone who he obviously has very different values to me. He's not a Christian, and he keeps telling me he's going to hell, and I'm like, we'll see. But I mean, he keeps telling me he's going to hell, whatever. He does all these things that I wouldn't agree with. But when we're together, whatever, he doesn't force me to do those things. So I don't really see that as a bad relationship to have. Whereas I have other friends who I hang around, and when I'm around them, kind of the advice they give me is kind of like, don't worry about the Jesus thing, don't worry about that stuff, and it's kind of like those people kind of push me to do things I don't necessarily want to do. Like I'm kind of telling them, nah, I want to do X, Y, Z, and they're the ones saying, don't do X, Y, Z, do something else. I think those are the people that I'd say, maybe spend a little less time with them, or I don't know, like, once again, maybe it just depends on the situation. But yeah, certainly I wouldn't say like outright, this person is different, or they do things that Christians don't do, you shouldn't hang out with them. The other side of things is I wouldn't say that's your get out of jail free card. You should hang out with whoever you want, because you'll always never be peer pressured. Because I've been peer pressured before, and I notice I get peer pressured because I say stupid stuff which other people say, right? Like there's a couple of guys at church who love memes, and eventually I catch on to these memes, and they're really dumb and stuff or whatever. But I find that I'm peer pressured by memes. So when it comes to actual stuff that sometimes I actually want to do, yeah, I'm sure I'd get peer pressured. So it's a bit nuanced. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's just like, I think generally, if you feel like this is my perspective, I don't know if it was the same as yours, but generally it's like, if you feel like you're weak in that area, or if you feel like you're going to get pressured easily, you should kind of steer away from them. And once you're more mature, and that's what I was talking about, like being more self-aware of who you are. Once you're more mature in that area, I guess like you can still like be closer with them, because you won't be as tempted or easily pressured to do those things.
Yeah. I think it just depends on like the specific person, right? Like it's not going to be a one size meets all. It's kind of like, how does this person kind of treat you in this situation? Like the thing that you're not very good at saying no to, or whatever. Is this person the kind of person who wants to push you into doing that, or is he not? Yeah. And sometimes it's really complicated, because like if your friend doesn't do drugs, and you're weak in taking drugs or whatever, this friend is not going to push you to do that, even because even though he pushes you to do other things, he won't push you to do this thing because like he's not into it or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends on the person and the situation.
Yeah.
So sort of to summarize, it just like all things in our podcast that we're talking about, it depends. Right, we need to talk about it. We need to think about what does a bad influence actually look like for us, in the sense of, is there something that pushes us away from God?
Yeah, I would just say that I think the thing I would want to push away from is kind of like the cookie cutter answer, which is that you should only hang out with Christians, right? And you shouldn't hang out with non-Christians because non-Christians are bad. I think that's the wrong attitude. I wouldn't want to kind of say that, like that you should, as an absolute, only hang out with Christians. I think that's just silly if someone says that. Yeah, like I think maybe we should be cautious about who we hang out, but we shouldn't like outright say this one group of people are people we shouldn't hang out with, or whatever.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So it's like a person by person basis, not a stereotype. This person is bad for me.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's move on. And I think this is something that a lot of youth have struggled with, and I think it's a good topic for us to discuss. It's for someone who we would assume is a Christian. So is it bad if I behave differently in front of my friends, say at school or at tutoring, compared to how I act at youth group or at church? Maybe we'll start with Rosh this time, so take it a break.
So is it bad if I repeat the question?
So is it bad if you behave differently? If I did behave differently, if I'm in front of my friends at school and then at youth group, I'm like a completely different person. So I'm like a good Christian at church or at youth group. I don't swear. I don't do other stuff. And then when I'm at school, I do. I'm like a completely different person.
I mean, I don't know if my opinion is controversial, but I think it actually comes back to, for me, what do you want to do? Like that's the thing for me. Like, if you want to swear and take drugs and drink and do all those sorts of things, if that's what you want, and then you're hanging around people who make you do that, then you're really just giving yourself what you want. And so like, it's like either way, the scenario that's given, you're putting up some kind of fake image, right? You're either going to church and pretending you're good at church, while really what you want to do is do all this stuff that's not really church stuff, like not stuff that, like, as in you say you're Christian, and there are things that Christians generally avoid, but you're like, okay, I don't actually care about avoiding any of that stuff. I just want to do everything, and then so when you leave church, you do all that stuff. Or you could be the reverse, and you're like, I'm actually Christian, I don't want to do this stuff. And you're putting up a fake image when you go out because you want to hang out with your friends and stuff like that. So I think either way, one of the two things is probably fake, right? Like there's a what you actually want to do, and then there's a like what you're doing in both scenarios. And I think like my kind of feeling, which might be controversial, is you should do what you really want to do. Like that's my feeling. You should do what you really want to do. You can struggle and kind of not get it right all the time, but like if you are a Christian and you like the reality of being a Christian is you say, I actually believe that this Jesus guy came to earth, he died for my sins, and that like sins is something that I needed to be saved from. He came and died for it, I'm free from it, and now what I need to do is follow him, not because I have to follow a book or anything, but because actually I'm thankful for this guy for what he's done. If that's what you believe in, then generally your feeling is, cool, I want to do stuff for this guy, right? Like my analogy is, if you've got a good friend and he buys you like chips or something like that, you're pretty happy because he bought you chips. But if he like, I don't know, saves your family from like a mountain of debt, or if he does something like crazy or saves your life, you'd be like really, really thankful. And the natural response for me for being thankful is to kind of do stuff for the person or to listen to the person. I think that's me and Jesus. It's like, because I feel thankful for what he's done, I want to kind of do these things. I want to be like Jesus. I want to live like Jesus. And that means I don't want to do these things that Jesus says not to do. Like that's just naturally what it is for me. Like in my heart, I want to not do these things that Jesus says avoid, right? And that's not like, it's not cookie cutter things like don't do drugs, don't smoke or something like that. It's like don't like turn away from God, pretty much. Don't reject God, don't go my own way. That's what I'm trying to do. Do I slip up? Yes, sometimes I slip up. But that's what I want, right? But if in your heart you're like, I don't actually love Jesus, I just go here because my parents want me to go to youth group, or I just go here because I'm forced, or I'm really here because there's a cute girl, and what you really want to do is just enjoy yourself, go drink, go have sex, go do stuff like that, then I think that when you're at youth group, you're putting up a fake image. And like in my mind, it's like, I don't know if the answer I'm supposed to give is be perfect, because it's the cookie cutter Christian answer. But to me, it's like just be who you want to be and be real, right? Like if you want to be the swearing type, then that's fine. Swear. If that's what you think is good, that's fine. That's between you. I believe you shouldn't swear because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. But if you want to, that's fine for you. The only nuance is like obviously there's like a level of respect. So if you like swearing and you come into a church, you might be like, oh, I can't swear in here. And I think that's good that you're respecting that. But apart from that, yeah, I would just say be real, be yourself. Is that controversial?
What do you think, Pat?
Controversial.
He can't agree with me.
But like, is it bad? Like, if you behave differently, like, yes, I guess it's bad. But like again, like Rosh just admit he slips up. Like I slip up too. Everyone slips up. Like as Christians, we're not perfect, but like that's why we also need Jesus in our lives. Like, and he died for our sins, right? And so you shouldn't be enslaved to that sin for example, swearing. Like you should do your best to avoid that. Another thing that I just wanted to touch on is that Rosh also mentioned that we should do what we want to do, and I think that comes back to your roots of like your identity.
Yeah.
And so if you actually want to be a Christian, if you actually want to devote your life to serving God, then you would naturally just avoid those things like swearing and whatnot. But again, you would slip up. Like, we don't live that perfect life.
And I think the question of if that's bad, I think if you go back to the root, right, and you say what I really want is that I love Jesus and I want to be like him. If that's what you really want, and that's like the inner thing in your heart, then it's okay if you slip up, right? Because we believe in Jesus who died for our sins, past, present, and future. But if what you really want is to do those other things, then maybe that is like. But you're saying you're a Christian, then maybe that's bad, right? Yeah.
So I just want to push on that. You should do what you want to do bit. So if I am a non-Christian high school kid and I'm going to youth group at the moment, and I don't want to do the Bible study bit, but I want to do the rest of youth group, should I not do that? Is that a bad thing or is that a good thing?
I think it's still a good thing that you're coming. Even though you don't want to do that, there's still like some purpose of you coming and hanging around people who do have that Christian mindset. So I would still encourage you to come, and hopefully one day like God will speak to you, because at the end of the day, it's not us who brings you closer to God, it's God's work. And so we're just here to try and facilitate that. So I encourage you to still attend.
Cool. Roshan, this was your original do what you want to do. So
Yeah, I mean, I say this at every SIC camp in my group. Like, when I have a group of kids, it's not my goal to convert every one of them to Christianity. Like, I want everyone I meet to know Jesus the same way I do and to believe in Jesus. But when I talk with you or when I have you in a Bible study, my goal is not to convert you. It's really just to have an honest, upfront conversation. And I think that's what I prefer. I just like having honest conversations. So there's two parts to the question. So I think, first of all, should you be like, I'm coming to youth group, but like, screw your Bible study, I'm just going to flip tables, I'm going to turn off all the lights, or I don't know, I'm going to like make a mess during Bible study. No, I think because what I'm saying is you've come to church, and I touched it a little bit. It's a little level of respect, right? Which is, it's not about what you want at that point. You're coming to someone else's thing and just like showing some respect, right? Like, so if I went to, I don't know, your house, right? I kind of got to respect what the rules of your house, right? And your parents' rules, or I mean, you live by yourself with your wife now, so your house rules, right? And so that level of respect is still there. I don't have to like it, but I mean, it's still my choice at the end of the day if I come to a youth group or not, right? So youth group, we do play games, we do sing, we do listen to the Bible and read the Bible and study the Bible. We do eat food, and we do have socializing. So if you could say, I like the socializing, but I don't like anything else, and that's fine. But it's your choice whether you want to come or not, I think, right? And if you choose to come, I think you should respect kind of what we do. You have to like it, though. You could be like, game sucks, I hate games, I want to sit in the corner and eat my sushi or whatever it is that you do, or drink my milk tea. That's okay. Just be respectable when you're there is what I think. The other side of the question, I think maybe Bible studies suck if you... I mean, your leader could be bad at leading Bible studies. I'm pretty bad at leading Bible studies too. But I mean, I think I have great Bible studies, and it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not Christian, or if you're whatever. It's about like whether you come and you want to talk about what you believe. Because you know what, I think it's when we talk about different topics, I think it's fun to talk about those topics if we're actually all discussing it and we're sharing. It's boring if first of all, it's boring if the leader's like, Bible, 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 Bible. I don't care what you believe. Is it the Bible? Yes. Okay, we're good. Is it the Bible? No. Okay, I don't hear it. It's good when we engage with different ideas and we hear different ideas, right? Like, I had some fun moments where I don't know if other people in the group found it fun, but as a leader found it fun. When I had the year 12 kids a couple of years ago, and they invited their non-Christian friend who was Muslim, he was atheist from Muslim, and he wanted to have a debate in the middle of our Bible study about his beliefs, and it was fun. It was great. I think everyone enjoyed it because he was, from what I understand, and he wasn't giving us Christian answers. He was saying, "Oh, it's all a lie," blah 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 blah. But it was good because he was actually being open and honest about what he believed, and I think that was the good part, right? He was sharing what he believed, and we can, at the end of the day, we can both have different views on something, and I think we can still have a good conversation on it, right? Like you could say, there is no reason to not have sex before marriage. I want to because it's fun or whatever. I can say, yeah, it's good, but I disagree, and we can still have a good conversation from the back of that.
You can
right?
still be friends.
Yeah, we can still be exactly just the same way I am with my non-Christian friends. But I think it's boring if you're sitting there and you're kind of like, I don't agree with any of this, but I can't voice my opinion because I don't want to voice my opinion because they're all Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to foster, that environment where, you know, it's good. We want nothing more than to talk to you about what you think about Christianity, even if it's, I don't believe in Christianity.
Yeah, you know, with my high school friends, I remember at a certain point in like second year uni, we had this DNM, and they told me that they actually because they were coming out of high school, so they're getting into things like having sex and drinking and alcohol and drugs. And I remember having a conversation with them, and they were kind of like, "Oh, we didn't want to bring up sex or any of that stuff because we thought you wouldn't like it or you'd be angry at us or whatever." And I was like, "No, like I don't expect you to live by my life or whatever I believe." So and after that we started having conversations about it, and it's, I mean, like they're talking about them having sex, I'm talking about me not having sex, but I mean we're still having good conversations about it, right? And I think maybe there's that bit of a barrier at first, but I mean once you get past that barrier, I think you can have perfectly normal conversations, and yeah.
So let's touch on that, being a Christian and talking to your friends. So I think one thing that Christians might feel is that they're afraid to go too deep too quick with Christianity. So when they're talking to their friends about Christianity, they don't want to sort of Bible bash them with believe in Jesus or go to hell, because they might think that if I do this, then I might ruin the relationship. So I won't be friends with them anymore, and then I really can't share the Bible with them. So how would you address someone who might have that sort of concern? So if you're a Christian in high school, you're trying to share Jesus with your friends, but yeah, you don't want to ruin the friendship. How would you do that? Pat?
Well, I can't speak from experience in high school, but in work could be that's quite similar. So I'll just use that example. At work, I do have like a colleague who is Muslim, and we do have conversations about which one is the true religion, and we've talked like probably 2 or 3 times. We spent like a good solid 30 minutes to an hour just standing there talking when we should be working. And we always come to the conclusion or he always ends up by saying, "Oh, we'll see what happens when we die. Like, if you're right, then you win. If I'm right, then I win," kind of thing. And yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely what Rosh mentioned, like just about having open, honest conversations, because that's how you get people to engage and talk, be honest, and you just have to listen to their perspective. And that was exactly what I was doing. I was genuinely curious, like, why don't you believe in Jesus, like being God?
Or like what do you actually believe, right?
Yeah. After asking that question, it got more specific about Jesus.
What if they don't want to talk about it?
If they don't want to talk about it, I can't really force them. So
yeah, that's fine.
So you just
I guess try and foster a better relationship when they're more open. Till they're more open.
You look like you're thinking.
Well, I was gonna say, like, it definitely makes it really hard if you're the kind of person who never acts like a Christian outside of church. Like, if you're only a Christian at church, and then when you leave church, you're like, I don't do any of this stuff or whatever. It definitely makes it really hard. Like, for me, like I'm probably the other extreme, right? Because I'm really involved in church, and so like you can't really talk about my life and not talk about church, right? So then for me, when it comes to bring up Christianity with my friends, it's just a natural aspect of my life, right? So that, for example, I said before, they're like, "Hey, are you free to hang out on Friday?" And I have to say, "Sorry guys, I got youth group," right? And it's just like, okay, some of them will be like, "What's youth group?" or "What's that about?" right? And I'll explain, this is what we do, blah blah. Or they may, like sometimes they're like, "What are you doing during the summer holidays?" Or like, "Why are you taking leave from work?" I got sick camp, and I got to explain that. Or what are you doing on Sunday? I got to explain that. Even in high school, my parents were like, my parents were kind of like nominal Christians, so they said they were Christians, but they didn't really act like it. And so they would say, like, why are you going out on Friday night? Why don't you stay home and study? And first of all, I wasn't going to stay home and study anyway, even if I did stay home. But I'd be like, oh, I got a youth group, And so, like, I think if you, like, just naturally have Christianity as a part of your life, then it's easier. When someone says, what'd you do on the weekend? I went to church. Or you can just pretend that you didn't go to church and just block out that segment and just say nothing.
I had a good weekend. It's nice and
quiet. I did something from 12 p.m. on Sunday onwards. But I mean, if you naturally talk about it, it just becomes a part of life. And I think then the other part where it becomes good is when you're talking and you actually have a serious relationship, you have a real conversation. You just share what you believe, and what you believe is generally based on Christianity anyway, right? Right. So I think when that comes out, I think that's the most kind of honest form of conversation. Like not when because when I go into conversations, I don't generally go into them saying, I'm going to convert this person to Christianity, or I'm going to convince them how they're wrong and I'm right about believing Jesus. I don't do that. I just kind of go in kind of sharing how I believe, what I think, and I don't know, if it sounded similar to what Pat said, I just kind of want to know how they think. Like, I like knowing what people think, and I think if someone has if someone kind of believes something and it works for them, I'm kind of okay with that. I think they're wrong, but I'm okay with that. If it makes sense for them and they're happy with it, it's okay. But I like understanding why. And so, for me, it's kind of easy because we naturally talk about it. And I remember having some beach houses with some of my non-Christian friends, and we actually we talked about Christianity at some point because I just flew on from just general conversation. I think that makes it easier, but certainly it's hard if you never talk about it with them.
So you got to do it often, but not in a way that is jarring.
Well, if you come across and say, I don't know if you agree, if you come across and say, I want to tell you about Jesus, you got to convert to Christianity now, right? Well, I mean, who the heck's going to be like, yes?
It's like if you're in high school, you're like, hey, what do you have for lunch? Jesus.
I mean, like even before, so I became a Christian because I went to SIC camp, and then I got with this church and this youth group. But before I went to SIC camp, I knew it was a Christian camp, and I was like, no way, I don't want to go to that. Even though I came from a family, I kind of thought I was a Christian at the time. But I was like, Christian camp? I don't want to go to that. When someone was like, you should go to this Christian camp, right? So like, if you tell someone become a Christian, no, what's the positive at face value? Nothing. But it's through reading about Jesus, understanding Jesus, thinking about myself that I kind of became a Christian.
At the best of times, no one likes being told what to do anyway.
Yeah.
So the question is, how would you do it? So obviously, not the wrong way to do it is to say, just believe in Jesus. How come you don't believe in Jesus?
So definitely what Rosh mentioned, like your actions would definitely be beneficial.
Yeah.
Because a common thing on a Monday when you get to work, it's like, what'd you do for the weekend? And it's like, oh, I had church. I did this youth group stuff on Friday last week, and stuff like that. So your actions also help.
Yeah.
With sharing Jesus.
Yeah.
And just don't be afraid to tell people about Jesus. But at the same time, it's not all about telling. You should listen to them with open ears and understand them. Like genuinely try to understand them, and then I'd say also genuinely care for them. So saying because from us we want people to believe in Jesus because we want them to be saved after they die.
Like we generally think it's a good thing for them.
Yeah, like we want to share that, right? If we truly care about them, we want their lives to be saved. And so you would need to have those intentions.
Yeah.
Anything more to that?
I think two things for me. So one thing is not projecting like a fake image. So not being like, I'm perfect, Christian's perfect, join us on the perfect side. It's not like that, because first of all, if they're your good friends, they know how imperfect you are, right? They know the bad things you do. But it's actually sharing, I'm human, I have bad things too, but we have this Jesus guy, right? And that's why we feel so confident in that. I think that's really important. So like, also talking about how perfect Christianity and Jesus is and church is, because it's not, right? And I know I've had some really good conversations with non-Christians or friends in general, where I've shared how frustrated I am with church or church people, and some people are like, oh, that will give them a bad image of church or whatever, and it's like, no, I mean, it just being honest with them and sharing, like, I actually struggle with some people at church. I'm human. It's not like we all like get to church and kiss and hug each other and we're like best friends. There's stuff that's frustrating in church as well with people. I think being real. One thing that I'm probably bad at is that, or two things. First of all, like it's easy to kind of be like, oh, yeah, I went to church on Sunday as a passing comment. But if someone says, how was your week? It's really hard to be like, oh, I had a really good prayer week this week. Or I read the book of James and it was really enlightening. That's really scary to do, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, most of the time, if I say that to my friends, it'd be like, cool, and that's it. Like, but I mean, I think it makes them more aware of who you are and what you do. I probably don't actually explain the gospel to them enough, which is the kind of the reverse. Like, if you get stuck in that mode of just being like, let's just D&M and just let me just talk about me, I should actually share the gospel to them somehow. Which means to explain the gospel, and at some level, and we might talk about this later, the gospel is kind of offensive, because you're telling people that they can't save themselves. Well, first of all, you're telling them that they do bad things, which not everyone likes to hear. You're telling them they can't save themselves from bad things, and you're saying they need this Jesus guy to save them, and that will put them in a right relationship with God, right? And so that's offensive in lots of ways to lots of people. And there's people who have passed away in their life, and you're telling them that those people didn't make it to heaven probably because they don't know Jesus. It can be really offensive to people. So, caution, of course. If someone just loses their parents, you shouldn't go up to them and be like, "Didn't make it to heaven." You should. You should do. Hey, and I have some really bad examples of friends who are like, I had a friend who was being abused, and his Christian friends were like, you should pray that it would go away, and it didn't go away, and they were like, you didn't pray good enough. And it's like, that's horrible advice, right? But like, it's not stuff like that, but you should share the gospel with them. The tough part, I would say, is what if and maybe you can explain how you feel, because I think for me, it was really easy when I became a Christian. People were just like, cool story. No one was like negative. I don't know if you have a different experience, but like, how would you recommend people do it when they have friends who actually say, oh, that's gay, or that's lame, or you're a loser, or that's stupid, or whatever, when you tell them, like, I went to church on Sunday, or I believe in Jesus? Like, what do you reckon you should do? Because I know some kids have friends, and it's like they bring up the Christian thing, and then their friends are like, that's stupid, or that's gay, or that's lame. Not to use the gay thing or whatever, but yeah.
Well, that hasn't happened to me, so I wouldn't know how to respond. But if it did, well, I'd hear him out. Just like,
what if they're just boys and they're just giving you the bants and they're like, yeah.
Oh, if it's just a joke, then.
But they do it every time you bring it up.
Well, to me, every joke has an essence of truth.
I reckon. Yeah,
I would ask them why. Like,
why?
It's like, alright, that's enough. Like.
Yeah, but as if you're gonna be like, alright, play through a scenario. You go, oh yeah, I went to church on Sunday. I'm like, that's stupid. You're gonna be like, what's stupid about it? I mean, you can do that, but I'll probably be like, it's just, I'm not gonna, I don't know.
I would say it if it happens a few times. Yeah. Like, I would say it as a joke, but actually want an answer from them.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
oh, what's so stupid about it? Like, I just want to hear.
Yeah. What do you think? Because I know there's some kids who go through that.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I think it's hard when you're the only Christian in a bunch of non-Christians.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of, an echo chamber is a real thing where people will feed off the thoughts of other people. Like, yeah, I think that too. So then it's sort of like 7 against 1. It's probably not the best environment to share the gospel in that sense. Sometimes it's better to talk to someone. And I think most people can relate to this. When you talk in a group setting, someone might behave very differently to if you're talking to them when they're on their own. And I think most of the serious conversations actually happen in a one-on-one context as opposed to a group. So I would think that it's probably not the best time to be pushing back on this. Maybe you could go to them afterwards and say, hey, I was actually genuinely curious as to why you think that, because this is something that I take seriously.
They'd probably just be like, it was a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I would say is, yeah, I mean, maybe going back to the first question, maybe if every time you tell your friends that you're a Christian, they say that's stupid, you probably got some bad friends. Maybe, I don't know, like, I think if you've got friends and they're your friends, then like they don't have to agree with what you believe. They have to like what you believe, but generally they just be like, good for you, right? And if they're like, haha, you're stupid because you're a Christian, then they're probably not good friends, right? Like if that's all they keep saying to you, then maybe they're not the most supportive friends to be around. Like I think you want people who are happy with your differences, who'd be like at the least, you just want them to be like, good for you, you believe in this thing. I don't believe in it. You know, it's silly for me, but good for you, right? That's what you kind of want in your friends. So if you just got friends who just keep saying it's stupid, it's stupid, it's stupid, maybe you know they're not the best friends to hang around in general, right? Because I mean, what if something else is going good for you and they're like it's stupid, it's stupid, it's stupid? Or you like if you hang out with kids and they're like you want to study and they're like you shouldn't study, it's lame, right? They could say the same things. Studying is stupid. Play Dota with me or whatever, right? And it's like.
Does that mean you shouldn't?
Does that mean you should? Oh, it's like, maybe. I mean, it's up to the situation, right?
Yeah, true.
Like, once again, what do you want? Is it worth it? If you actually, I think you should study. In hindsight, I didn't study hard enough, and I'll tell everyone, all the years matter. Year 7 to 12, I was wrong. There's no just wait to year 12 and smash in year 12. All the years matter. But if you want to study and you want to get somewhere in life, then and you've got friends who are currently like studying's gay or studying's lame or whatever, then maybe they're the best friends to hang around, I think. And you don't want to be in a toxic environment like that, I think. Yeah.
Well, I think that's all we have time for tonight. I think 2 big takeaway points are we should be real to what we think and what we believe, and we should show that, especially at church where we're often tempted to not do that, because we want to see who you really are, and we want to discuss that with you. And the second thing is that as Christians, if we're trying to share the gospel with other people, we need to be genuinely caring for them. That's all we have time for. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send it to us on Instagram, or you can message us. If you have any other questions, they'll be answered next week with the other crew, with Alex, Danny, and Jazz. But until then, we'll see you next time. See ya.
Thanks for watching.